All right, welcome back. And I am starting to feel a lot better since I gave up caffeine last week. No, not caffeine completely, but coffee. Gave up coffee. So I still have a little bit of caffeinated tea, but that's not what this talk is about. This talk is going to help with on-court coaching because when you're working with a strategy mid-match, it's really important to keep it really simple. Um, now, you know, if you have got a game plan going into a match, one thing I recommend is that you should have anywhere from 3 to 5 tactics that you're going to employ in your strategy. Anything more than 5 is too much, and if the more you can keep it to 3, the better. So if 3 does it, 3 is really a great number because it's manageable and it gives you the opportunity to alternate between different tactics so that you're not using the same tactic over and over and over again. Sometimes using the same tactic over and over and over again works, but sometimes it just becomes too predictable. So, when you're moving from tennis strategy 201, which is geared towards the 3-0 to the 4-0 level player, then you're probably going to want to use only 3 tactics. And then when you're going to, 301 and above, when you're 4-0 and you're wanting to become 4-5 and higher than that, then you're going to need more tools in your tool belt. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to drill down into, first you come up with your game plan, right? And so you've got your strategy, and you're either going to overpower somebody, you're going to pressure their time and space, pressure their movement, disrupt their rhythm, or you're going to counterpunch, right? But in each of those things, there are different tactics. So the power player might want to hit 2 different locations on their serve. They might want to go for the corner serve and they might want to go for the body serve, right? So that's 2 different tactics right there. And then, they might want to serve at the body, anticipate a short ball, and then the next ball goes to a corner. So that's another tactic. So they're different. So that's 2 already, right? And then another one could be that they're going to attack second serves. They're going to go for very hard returns at the server and then away from the server. So now you've got 4 tactics for the power player. That simple. But then sometimes things go wrong. And now you're on court coaching and you've gone into the match with a game plan, and now it's time to make an adjustment because the title of this is One Change Can Turn a Match. One, right? So I'll give you one example. Very early in my career, I had the opportunity to serve as a volunteer coach for a Division II college team, and that was a really great educational experience for me early in my coaching career. I think I was, how old was I? I think I was 29, and I was volunteer coach, and then I ran CompuTennis, which was something that came out in the 80s. And so you had this dedicated Epson laptop, right? Laptops in the 80s, and they were heavy. I mean, that thing was 10 pounds or something like that. So you've got this 10-pound laptop that's dedicated towards taking statistics. So it's not even, there was no word processing on this laptop. There was nothing like that. It was dedicated fully to taking tennis stats. So you push this button for a first serve, and you press that one for it went to the backhand, and blah, 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 all this stuff. So a really cool thing happened. We've got this guy playing a match, and we're looking at the data, and we discovered, or I discovered anyway, that he was he had lost the first set, and after a set, we had all this data that showed that he was only returning 50% of his returns in play in the deuce court, but he was making 75% of them in play in the ad court. Okay, now that's interesting data. So, but now what you need is you need data paired with reality. So what was the reality? The reality was that he was going for winners on his returns because the other guy didn't have a huge serve. So this guy loves his forehand, so he's just teeing off on these returns. What was the problem? The problem was he was getting a few winners. So I mean, each service game he would get one return winner. So that's very addicting, right? I mean, and then, but we're looking at the data and I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't remember the guy's name, but we, you know, after the first set was over and he had lost, I went, look, you're only making 50% of your returns. I mean, you can still go for some every once in a while, but tell you what, make two, then go for something. Make two in a row, then go for something, and then you'll get your percentage up. So as it turned out, he got a little bit more conservative with his return of serve in the deuce court, because what was the other thing that was happening was that he would go for something and miss by even just a couple of inches. Then he'd go to the ad court and he would play more conservatively. So he'd get it back to 15 all. Then he'd go back over here to the deuce court and tee off again. Conservative, tee off, conservative, tee off, back and forth. When he became a little bit more conservative on the deuce court, then that was the change that allowed him to win in 3 sets. In fact, the third set, he won it going away. It just wasn't even close because he pretty much had broken the other player down. So it's really interesting how one change like that can make such a difference in a match, especially when it comes to reducing errors. But it doesn't mean that you have to completely take away the offensive game of an offensive-minded player. I mean, you just go, hey, look, poke a couple in, right? And then, you know, once if you've got him at serving at 15-40, go for one then, or go for one on the first point of the game. But if you miss it, then you've got to put 2 more in. So to get that mentality of starting to make closer to 70-75% of these returns. And, you know, the best returners in the world are generally making close to 80% of their serves and returns in play. So Leighton Hewitt and Andre Agassi had slightly different approaches to this, but they were both above 75%. And I think when Leighton Hewitt was number 1, he was significantly above 80%. And that's what made him so tough, is that ball was always coming back. So that's such a huge thing, is you put that server under the pressure that they have to make the next ball. And that's where, you know, the serve +1 data comes in, you know, the 0 to 4. So people wrongly interpret 0 to 4 data, which says that, you know, 70 to 75% of points end before the 5th shot is made. And they think that we're telling you that you have to win the point quickly, that you have to do first strike tennis, when actually it's really the opposite. In reality, what you want to do is you want to play intelligently for the first 2 points. It doesn't mean completely non-aggressively. It just means intelligently. So don't make needless errors, right? So you get your returns in play, and then the most common rally length is 1. That means the server made the return and the returner did not make the return. So if you don't have a lot of ones and the other player has a lot of ones, you're winning, right? You make that one. The next common rally length is 2, meaning the server made the serve, the returner made the return, but the server missed the +1 shot. So if you're not getting a 1 and you're making them lose their 2, then you also are winning. So it's really, really an important thing. Now, I want to end with this, because how do you identify the one thing? If you don't, let's say you don't have people charting, and that's fine, but if you're a team coach, get some kids to chart matches and look for particular pieces of data. And where you want to start is with the biggest chunk. So, if the other kid drop shots 5 times in a match and wins 4 of those points, then you don't necessarily worry about the drop shot, because it's only going to happen 5 times total. Big deal, right? But if your guy or your gal is not making returns of serve, they better make returns of serve, because that drop shot is not the issue. So when I go on a changeover, I ask my players these questions. I say, all right, how do you win your points? How do they win their points? How do you lose your points? How do they lose their points? And so that spurs them on to think about relative strengths and weaknesses. And they might go, oh, their serve is too strong, right? I'm like, okay, well, then what are you going to do? So if their serve is really strong, then you need to back up a little bit, and you need to take shorter back swings. And, so there are different strategies that you can employ to try to get a few more returns back against a strong server. Or how about this? He draws me to the net, and then he passes me. Okay. So, all right, well, then what are you going to do about it? So this is happening a lot. So don't go to the net on his terms, right? So if he thinks he's drawing you to the net, then what you can do is you can drop shot, or you can lob and go back. So don't fall for the trap of coming into the net on his terms. You can slice that ball softly back deep and retreat, or you can lob it, or maybe go for an angle on that ball and take him out of his comfort zone. But don't let him pull you in and pass you like that. So and then a lot of times when the player can identify, oh, hey, when I hit him a high ball, he hits short, and then I'm able to pick that off. I'm like, okay, well, let's see a steady thing of high balls then, right? Or, hey, first point of the match, make sure you hit him a high ball, get the lead, keep playing. If you're at 30 all, make sure you give him a high ball so that you get to 40-30. Game point, give him a high ball. Break point, give him a high ball, because those are important points that you want to win, but you don't always want to play the same tactic, right? It's kind of important to not play the same tactic over and over and over again. So those questions, it's not instant. It's not an instant thing. So you'll go out and you talk to your player and you say, what do you see here? Because their perception of how they're winning the points or losing the points is more important than even the data that you have, right? But if you've got data and you can go and you can say, hey, look, your first serve percentage is way under 60% here. So get some first serves in, spin it in if you need to. It looks like they've got some really strong returns. So, after you serve, make sure that you're really reading what they're doing, and make sure that you're recovering to a good defensive position after you serve if they're returning that well. But back to my point, it takes a little bit of time for young players to start thinking about, how do I win my points? How do they win their points? How do they lose their points? How do I lose my points? So, but you do this, and about 3 or 4 matches in, then they're a lot more attuned to it. And when they're struggling, then that's a good time to say, okay, well, do you want to know what I see? And, generally they're going to say yes. So I'm like, okay, do you see how, they hit you a high ball, but then you're not hitting it back deep to them? And they're like, oh, yeah. So if you get a high ball, make sure that you get that thing back deep to them. Hit it higher to them than they hit it to you, and then they will stop doing that, right? So the question that you say this, you go, oh, you want to hit high balls, huh? Here we go. Because I used to hate those myself. I get this person hitting high balls to me, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to hit it even higher, see how you like it. And then you do that a couple of times, and they're like, oh, man, I have to stop hitting high balls to this guy because it comes back even higher. So give it some time. Think about those things. Help your players to understand how it is that they're going to win the match on the day, because every day is different. I'm going to leave you with this one. So it was my first year coaching this girls team, and we were playing, and we'd lost all of our varsity from the year before. So I have everybody on the team was JV the year before. So I'm like, wow. All right. And then we trained them up quick, and they had some pretty good talent, but we're up against this team that had normally been much lower in the standings, but they were a senior laden team. So they had, and that makes a difference in high school tennis. If you have all seniors, pretty much, they're going to do well against less experienced players, a lot of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, right? So this team, all of their singles players were hitting high, deep balls to my girls' backhands, and then they were coming in and they were taking volleys out of the air, or they were taking balls that landed in the middle of the court and hitting short angles to the other side. And my girls were at sea. It was really difficult. We managed to wiggle out of that, but it was tough. It was really, really hard. So, but in preparation for playing them the second time, we spent a couple of days working on taking a high backhand and hitting it even higher to their backhand and getting them to hit the short ball. And then we did it. And then, we annihilated them. And so we learned from them an amazingly good tactic, which is high balls deep to the backhand. Ask Rafael Nadal about that. And, because it sets you up for a great next shot, but only if they hit back to you short. Okay. So the other coach was flabbergasted because he couldn't believe that we used their tactic against them and did it better. So, it's really interesting how one change in a match can totally change it. I mean, we went from winning barely 4-3 and we were on the ropes to the next time, I'm pretty sure we beat them 6-1 or 7-0 based on the fact that we learned one new tactic. All right. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this, you spend some social digital currency, press like, subscribe, go to my website, brainsports.coach. Yesterday, I promised that I was going to upload the print book of Tennis Strategy 101. It didn't happen. It was a crazy day, but it will happen today. I will make it happen. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you in the next one.